how's it going, everybody? Welcome to FoundFlix. On this Ending Explained, we're looking at the arachnid terror of Sting, where after raising an unnervingly talented spider in secret, 12-year-old Charlotte must face the facts about her pet and fight for her family's survival when the once charming creature rapidly transforms into a giant flesh-eating monster. I'm always up for a classic monster-style movie, and Sting certainly fits the bill. It almost feels beholden to Amblin movies from the 80s with its family-centric story, but of course with some gnarly kills thrown in. Sting does a good job of blending its family-centric story and their struggles of trying to fit together, along with the horror and monstrous side of things that becomes more predominant over the runtime. I could have done with a bit more of the horror, honestly, and a big part of that is because the effects are quite good. The real winner here is the practical spider puppet used at some points, and I really just wanted more. It's worth noting that it was Peter Jackson's Weta Digital responsible for the work here. They know a thing or two about spiders. This aspect, along with many other references throughout, again make this feel like a throwback to similar classic movies like Gremlins or Arachnophobia, but done with its own particular spin. So yeah, it's not the scariest thing ever, but it sure is a lot of fun, and it does introduce some interesting concepts regarding Sting herself. So let's check out Sting, breaking down the story, what we learned about the not-so-ordinary spider, as well as explaining the ending that lets us know things are far from over. An alert from the National Weather Service sets the stage that New York is undergoing the worst ice storm in the state's history, and could possibly be tied to an asteroid that passed by Earth the previous day. Space spiders? In a well-worn apartment, Helga furiously knits while watching TV. She hears strange scuttling noises and scraping. It stops, sounding like whatever it is right above her in the air vents. The rumbling gets louder, and as she stares around the room, it quickly whisks by. She uses the yellow pages, dang, haven't seen those in a long time, to find an exterminator. The guy Frank seems to remember her, bringing up, as he says, her fucked up parrot, while she must be having memory issues herself, having pieces of paper on the wall to remind her of her name and address. The storm is indeed quite severe, all the cars outside completely covered in the white stuff. Frank pulls up and notices another truck there for the Bug Brothers, and he curses them under his breath. Already, Helga has forgotten that she even called him, and Frank finally convinces her to buzz him in. Inside, he stopped in his tracks, hearing more chittering noises, and notices a stream of green goo coming from a vent. Helga answers the door, and Frank complains over calling the Bug Brothers to clean up his previous job. You know they're not even brothers, they're criminals that met back in prison. Helga has once more forgotten why he's here until these strange noises return. Alright, that stuff. Frank follows the sounds to a back room with a bunch of old belongings and dolls strewn around. He passes his light across the floor, discovering a blood trail along with a Bug Brothers hard hat. The vent is busted clear off, and one of the brothers lies there bleeding with green around his mouth. He screams, and something gets him. Frank tries to flee, holding tight onto the door frame. Helga stands there looking disinterested as he is dragged away, now missing an eye. Unbothered, Helga gets back to her knitting, shushing his screams for interrupting her show. Then the noises are back, and she is back to the phone book in search of yet another exterminator. These guys keep getting eaten, what are you gonna do? We then rewind to 4 days prior and found out how everything started. A big meteor flies through the sky, so it is indeed a space spider. It crashes through Helga's window, landing right in a dollhouse. It hatches from a gooey egg, a small redback spider stepping out. It makes itself at home in its little dollhouse, exploring and checking out its new digs. It stops on a crib perching right on top, and precocious Charlotte busts inside. She surveys the belongings and notices a small hole in the dollhouse window. She snaps some photos of the creepy dolls, utilizing it as a joke for her social media account. She sees the small spider has crawled onto her hand, Charlotte whispering hello. She pulls out a box of matches and flicks the spider inside. Another harder looking lady, Gunther, pounds on the door. Is someone in there? Char makes it back through the vent before she gets inside. Gunter spots the hole too and gasps when seeing the damaged dollhouse. Char slinks through the ducts, hurriedly crawling through. She stops at Helga's, her watching TV and mindlessly knitting as usual. Also seeing that she does have a parrot, she navigates to another vent, watching as biology student Eric does some kind of light experiment with a fish in a tank. Gunter confronts Charlotte's stepdad Ethan about the broken window, and he does defend the girl. She orders him to fix the window in spite of all the other maintenance work he's doing around the crumbling building. Charlotte, he mutters to himself in annoyance. Must be her problem kid, I guess. Charlotte hurries to her room and sticks her buddy in an empty change jar. Makes a lot of weird noises and even appears to tap on the glass to get her attention. Ethan comes to bring up the broken window, and Charlotte denies having anything to do with it. He gets a phone call and has to leave, the girl smirking in delight that she didn't get caught. She tries to come up with a name, eyeing books up on her shelf. The Hobbit catches her eye, and she appropriately decides to name her Sting, after Bilbo's blade in the series. Ethan moonlights as a comic book artist and gets good news about the the publisher wanting to do a bunch more copies in the run. The problem being that he has only a week to meet its deadline and has to deal with his other day job and a new baby to boot. Her mom Heather has work commitments as well and asks Charlotte to look after her baby bro Liam. She groans that she has already looked after him for like 1,000 hours. She corrects that it was more like 3 minutes when she used the restroom. Mom doesn't want her hiding in a room all day anyway, thinking that it is not healthy. Charlotte lets out a huge dramatic moan and plops on the couch. Mom asks her to change her attitude, and the girl pastes on a huge fake smile. While doing some weird art thing with the doll, she spots a cockroach nearby. Sting starts clicking and making excited chirping noises. Assuming that she's hungry, Char drops the bug in the jar, encouraging her to gobble up. Liam distracts her for a moment, and when looking back, the bug is gone. Sting now hiding up on the lid. Downstairs, Ethan is hard at work repairing Maria's sink. A roach lands on him and he totally freaks out. Quite different than Charlotte. Maria declares the building is infested and blames Gunther for being cheap and creepy. He gets things fixed up and Liam begins crying above. He's not worried, saying kids are made out of rubber. He realized he broached a touchy subject, eyeing a family photo of Maria's. We don't learn what happened, but somehow she lost everyone in her family and is now all alone, telling him to go home to those beautiful children of his. Char captures another bug and whistles to Sting, the spider imitating her back. She says that will be their feeding whistle, meaning she does it when she's hungry. Char unscrews the cap and drops the next meal in. She watches intently, waiting for Sting to do her thing. She launches a web at the roach, quickly snatching the critter up. Ethan continues his never-ending maintenance work on the boiler down in the basement. He gives it a bang and it whirs back to life. He tosses some trash bags into the compactor, but it's on the fritz too. Did anything work around here? He jiggles the cable only to get a big jolt. He tries it again and the compactor does its thing. Hopefully that won't be a problem later. His task complete, Ethan takes a moment outside the door before returning home. As soon as stepping inside, it's total chaos, with Heather handing him Liam as she needs to get her mama to bed. She tucks Helga in, and she has knitted Charlotte a sweater. Helga suggests that she should meet her daughter, and Heather plays along. I like that too, she says. She opens the drawer and gives the sweater a sniff, and seeing mothballs rolling around in the drawer, it must have quite a distinct mothbally odor. Everyone loves that smell. Ethan takes the opportunity to work more on his comic, seeing that he has been working on it in tandem with Charlotte. He tells her the big news. The publisher wants another 45,000 extra copies. Her book is going to become a mainstream thing. She wants to see what he has so far, and he declines, feeling that he's not ready. She presses him and he relents, the girl taking a seat on his lap. She gushes over his work, and Heather wanders in, warmly looking on at the heartfelt scene. One professor character is based on her birth dad, but she's worried that he appears a bit too evil. So to add some more emotion, she adds some eyes peeking through his glasses. It's time for dinner, and Heather asked her daughter to set the table, causing her to elicit another annoyed grunt. Oh, queens. They have a quite loud and verbal dinner, and we float through their pad, seeing Sting's entire jar is already filling up with thick webs. Later, Ethan is back at his workstation. He pounds the rest of his beer and does a bit more touch-up, including erasing the eyes that Char drew. He heads to her room and notices a drawing of a big spider with her writing on the back. He then sees the jar, and Charlotte catches him, growling that he's trespassing. He excuses he was just coming to say goodnight, and she hops into bed with a quite fancy maneuver. He asks if he can steal her giant spider idea, and she agrees so long as he gets her some chocolate and 90% of the profits. He beams that he's proud of her and tells her that he loves her. She assumes that he's been drinking, and he admits just enough to keep him honest. She must have seen that he changed the drawing and asks if he did get rid of the eyes. He spills that he did, and she says she's not upset, but would rather him not lie about liking her ideas. He knows he blew it, muttering "fuck" guiltily to himself. Later, everybody is fast asleep, that is, except for Sting. She unscrews the jar's lid herself and already looks way bigger, her shadow dancing over Char's sleeping face. She beelines for the vents, and Helga's parrot can sense that something is wrong, squawking its head off at the vent. It only draws Sting right to it, and the spider makes quick work of the bird. It's another busy morning at the apartment, and no one is really paying attention while Char rattles off spider facts, such as them having blue blood. She gets upset at them ignoring her and leaves the table in a huff. Her mom calls after her to make sure to wear Helga's sweater, and she shouts back that it'll give her cancer. Ethan fills her in that she thinks mothballs are carcinogenic. Well, what about the sass? What's the deal with that? And he thinks that she's still hurt by the glasses thing. He messed up a drawing of her perfect dad. Heather clarifies he's a bit of a scumbag, actually. He left the family years ago and never really talks to his former family at all. Heather chalks it up to the new baby being in the house and is maybe worried that he's gonna leave too. She encourages that Char actually really likes him, even considering him her hero. She didn't have any interest in drawing until he was around. We then learn that the so-called professor, her dad, is actually back in town with Charlotte is unaware of. Heather dismisses that this isn't the time for that, and has to get ready for yet another meeting. They're both distracted by their work and are interrupted by loud screaming that the whole building hears. It's Gunther seeing her precious parrot has been destroyed. They call Frank, and he remarks that is one seriously fucked up bird, like it tried to have sex with a blender. He concludes whatever responsible must have been small, as it actually attacked the parrot from within. There's no way it was rats, as they don't melt their food before eating it. He eyes the air duct and knows that he's gonna have to smoke the whole building. He tosses in a bug bomb and vows to find whatever killed her feather baby. Char watches a cat video, and when it meows, Sting makes a similar noise. Like it can mimic other noises, kinda weird. She tries it with a bird sound, and the spider mimics that as well. She retrieves a bag of roaches, and they duet their feeding whistle. Mothballs roll across the table, and the jar starts rattling, Sting sounding distressed. Char takes a ball and brings it to a web strand, causing it to break down immediately. The jar starts to roll off the side, and she luckily catches it. She sees her pal on the lid, now a lot bigger. Awesome, she smirks. She learns more about spiders via a nature doc. Spiders attack from the inside to tenderize their flesh for their meals, and also like to feed on living flesh, meaning you are alive when they eat you. Well, that's horrific. Frank goes throughout the building, spraying down every nook and cranny. In Eric's place, he is curious why his fish are so scared. Eric replies in monotone, "Don't touch them, any variation could mess up his work." He's apparently studying their ability to regrow pancreatic beta cells. Frank has no idea what he's talking about. Oh, you can do that in your kitchen? Eric boasts that his work could save many lives, but well, not the fishes, Frank points out, seeing a dissected one out on the counter. Frank moves on to Charlotte's place and stops him before spraying a room. Sting won't like it. According to him, spiders don't make good pets as they don't have the capacity to love. They only know two things: eating and killing. She disagrees, and he wants to see Sting for himself. She brings over the jar, and when getting closer, Sting strikes at Frank. She doesn't like you, Char concludes. The storm continues raging outside, and it's feeding time once more. Char can barely get the guy into the jar before it gets yoinked away. She asks if she wants some more, and the spider replies with her hungry whistle. Seems that Sting is gonna need something bigger to eat as it grows in size. Later, Sting lets herself out of the jar and stalks through the vents. It stops at Maria's place, her dog Bonnie staring intently at a weird hot dog program on TV. Sting sneaks inside, and Bonnie starts barking, waking Maria up. Frustrated, she kicks the dog out in the hall and continues her way through a massive pitcher of drink, spilling all over the floor. She opens a cabinet searching for medication, not noticing Sting hiding out in the back. She downs the pill, and Sting is now crawling right over her shoulder. She takes down the family photo, wistfully staring at it. The spider crawls over the back of the frame, and tears start welling in Maria's eyes. Sting leaps at her, biting her cheek, and causes her to bonk her head. She checks out the mark in the mirror, and it's already looking pretty bad. She blows chunks and goes limp, thudding her head right on the tub on the way down, paralyzing her in place. Sting crawls right into her mouth, and Maria can't do a thing about it. It gags its way down her throat, poking through its skin as it descends further down her body. It then pierces her tummy, gutting her from within. "It's your first person you killed, Sting. We're so proud of you." Charlotte is curious about Eric, and Ethan dismisses that he's just a student, and his mom is the one that buys him all that stuff. He warns her to stay away, and of course, she immediately goes to his place. She brings him the spider and asks questions about their typical behavior. As far as growth, it depends. Some reach maturity in a few weeks, while others can take years. What about growing twice the size in a few hours? Eric says that is a physiological impossibility, and the girl counters, well, not with Sting. She decides to let him take a closer look, switching off the light. She whistles to it, and it whistles back. Her feeding call, she informs him. Eric is beside himself. Spiders don't have vocal cords. She knows Sting isn't a spider. This one is different. With how unique the critter is, Eric offers her whatever fish tank she wants to house Sting, but he wants to leave her with him for a little while. She is hesitant, but agrees as long as he doesn't tell Ethan. Back at home, Heather has news of a possible new job offer with a higher wage. They could finally get Char's teeth fixed. Ethan replies that her teeth are fine, and she believes that if it was Liam, he'd have no problem paying for it. The bickering is stopped by odd noises from the ducks. He removes the grate and pokes his head inside, hearing more echoes within. Something comes running at him, and Ethan falls on his ass. Maria's dog, surprisingly. He goes to return it, and when getting no answer, uses his skeleton key to check out inside. He then notices blood on the ground, and Bonnie stares, barking at the bathroom. He finds Maria's mangled body to his horror. He calls the police, and all he knows is that she has been down and drinking a lot lately. Can't never find out what happened to her family, though. Eric doesn't keep his word to Charlotte and rings Ethan regarding her dropping by. He lays it out that he has no idea what Sting is, and part of his dissertation is even regarding spiders, so, he would know more than the average person. He does know that they shouldn't be keeping it in an apartment, and Ethan has no idea about her new pet. Eric believes it's highly dangerous, and they need to get it to health and safety as soon as possible. Ethan is quite alarmed. Just what kind of spider are we talking here? Eric uses an electric probe, and Sting drops down, looking real big. Ethan then confronts Charlotte about Sting and what Eric said, causing things to come to a head between them. She's upset that he let him get rid of Sting without even asking her, and she doubles down that she read his comic and it totally sucks. He took out all the good stuff from her original story and even killed the professor / stand-in for, at least in her mind, dear old dad. She accuses him of not liking the character because it's based on her dad, and he is awesome. Ethan crosses the line a bit and pokes, is that why he never visits? She thinks that he's still in Thailand, and Ethan drops a bomb that he lives a mere 25 minutes away and still won't visit her. Heather is pissed, and Charlotte starts really sobbing. He tries to comfort her, and she shrieks for him to stay away. Heather lays the blame squarely on him. It's not for him to decide when to spill that info. He's hurt too. Well, I'm supposed to be your dad, right? He left and I am here. She maintains it has nothing to do with him. This is all about you. Well, more specifically, his difficulty in attempting to bond with Charlotte and really be like a father figure to her. Meanwhile, Eric has stuffed Sting into a fish tank, foolishly encouraging her to eat some rats and grow as big as you can. Sting gobbles the rat down, and Eric turns to his other critters. Who's next? Ethan is passed out at his desk and is awoken with a startle. He eyes an adaptation of Char's big spider drawing. He glances over and gets spooked, thinking that he saw a spider, but it's just a mess of power cords. In bed, Char flips through her original version of the comic, still featuring her papa. But with the heartbreaking news about him, she angrily tosses the comic right out into the snow-covered streets. Eric is somehow fast asleep in his room. I'm not sure how you would with that giant thing in there. And we head into the living room, the tank now covered in blood. Sting lunges at the glass, now already several times larger than hours earlier, and bursts her way free. Ethan's luck only gets worse back to fixing the boiler in the basement. He has a voicemail from his publisher, and they let him down they were gonna have to cut him from the book. The pages just aren't coming fast enough. Ethan is pissed, taking his frustration out on the boiler. His tantrum happens to be witnessed by Gunther, who takes the opportunity to fire him. He's shocked. She would take a paycheck from her own family, and she retorts, he's not her family. He doesn't understand why she hates him so much exactly, and she clarifies she doesn't hate him, he's nice, but weak, and like all weak men, when the going gets hard, you leave. She coldly tells him to just do everyone a favor and just go. She'll even help him right out the door. Jeez, not sure what this lady's problem is. She goes to search for her cat, finding no sign of them outside. Until later, she hears them meowing. We have a cat? Helga asks, to Gunther's annoyance. She returns to the hall calling for the kitty, and comes across a duct with a grate missing, hearing meowing inside. She passes the light over a wall, and the shadow resembles a spider, but it's just a houseplant. I'm too drunk for this, she grumbles, crouching down into the crawl space. As soon as she gets inside, her flashlight goes on the fritz. Her cat meows, followed by a bunch of other strange sounds. She gets a lighter going to a massive Sting waiting right there for her and drags her deeper within the ducts. Increasingly frustrated, Ethan crumples up his drawing. He hears yelling from the vent, and Sting has cocooned Gunther in a shaft. The news updates us that this is the worst storm in the state's history, picking up back at the beginning. Ethan is still struggling to hold it together and breaks. He tugs at a video cable and gets shocked, causing him to punch the TV in anger. Heather sends Char along with her baby bro away and tries to understand what is going on with Ethan. He excuses he has a lot to deal with at the moment, and she tells him no matter what is going on, he can't act like that in front of the kids. He admits that he is losing it, and she corrects, no, you're losing us. They're so wrapped up in their combo, they don't even notice Sting crawling around on the ceiling. Their domestic dispute is put on the back burner when Sting enters the main room and leaps upon Ethan. She subdues him and then goes for Heather, an oblivious Charlotte just mere feet away. Mom is quickly whisked away, and Ethan weakly tries to call for her but makes no sound. Charlotte at least hears Bonnie barking and walks right past her dad, totally glued to her phone. She gets some food for the pup, never looking up as Ethan is slowly dragged through. Bonnie keeps barking, and she finally removes her headphones just in time for Ethan to disappear into the vent. Sting gets him quickly webbed up, seeing that he's dangling over quite a long drop. He peers up, and the spider slinks away up the wall, Ethan shrieking in terror. Char tries the windows, finding them all sealed shut. And at least Liam is still safely in his crib. She runs back to the vent, hearing Bonnie barking inside. Sting whistles at her, and she knows that she's hungry. There's fast skewering and chittering, and Sting goes right down the shaft at her. She gets a bookcase in front of the vent blocking it, but not all the vent, seeing it crawling down the wall to retrieve baby Liam. By the time she notices, he's gone, and she shouts for her former pet to bring him back. She springs into action to save the day, first putting on her grandma's mothball-scented sweater. Knowing that it could injure Sting, she takes out some more balls and turns them into liquid for a super soaker. She sprays down the walls before going further, and soon comes upon the poor cat strung up and torn to pieces. Down in the shaft, Gunter struggles awake, but both are still unable to speak. They hear Sting's hungry whistle, and it climbs down for its next meal. It retrieves Gunter and pulls her away to munch upon, and Ethan knows that his time is running out. Char gets to Eric, discovering the fish tank destroyed. She then finds Eric webbed up to the ceiling, but still alive. Well, sort of. Her next stop is her grandma's house, and she asks if she's seen anything strange. Helga makes mention of a big black dog. She tried to pet it, and it ran away. Char is confused, but when smelling her mothball-encrusted shawl, knows for sure that it works as a deterrent. She then collects more mothballs and makes a bigger batch of moth juice. She leaves Helga to get some help, telling her to call the police if the phone lines come back on. She agrees, but when asking if she knows their number, she blankly asks, "What number?" Yeah, she's not gonna be much help. Char dumps a whole bottle of juice all over her and steps outside, her grandma remarking, "What a strange girl." He then attempts to move, and the web gives him a nasty cut. Charlotte opens a vent, and he's right there, taking in the precarious situation. She asks about the others, and he has no idea where they are. She is confident that she can get the webs off, telling him to hang on to the wall. She utilizes the moth juice, quickly melting the webs away. Out front, Frank returns, annoyed that he's back, and stops at the green goo covered vent as before. They start to climb out, but stop when hearing Liam wailing. They look up to Sting coming right for them, and lose their grip, plummeting down into the basement. The spider climbs down after, right on both of their asses. The girl cannot believe how big she's gotten, and she gets right in front of her old pal. Ethan unleashes a bottle upon Sting. "Don't you touch her!" he screams, and the spider retreats. The pair share a big embrace, Charlotte crying this is all her fault. He assures her that it isn't, and it's up to them to work together to deal with this. He starts to move, and Char cries, "Don't leave me!" He encourages he's never going to leave her, and the tender moment is ruined by Frank tumbling down the chute, screeching about what the fuck that was. "Sting," Charlotte informs him, and he can't believe that's her spider. Why didn't you get a dog instead? He's determined to get out of here and finds the door locked. They're trapped, he realizes. He grows frantic with Ethan. Where's the skeleton key? He tells him to calm down or they are gonna die. And when revealing the moth juice's effects, Frank steals the last bottle to douse himself. Sting begins crawling out, and Frank unleashes a barrage of nails upon her. He also wings a sprinkler head, triggering the water to turn on and washing off their protection. Frank notices Sting's blue blood to his satisfaction. If she bleeds, we can kill it. What are you, Predator? With no more shield, Sting shoots out a long web and staring Frank. She shoves him into the vent and destroys him, blood shooting out. Ethan grabs Charlotte and they hop into the malfunctioning compactor and just happen across the rest of the family cocooned in there. Convenient. They pour out the water to melt the webs and luckily both are okay. Well, more or less. That baby is gonna have nightmares for the rest of his life. There's rumblings from above and Ethan gets the controller at the ready. Sting rises up hissing and Char goads him to come and eat him up. She scurries in and of course the thing is messed up again. It's not even plugged in. Ah, dang. Ethan bashes the wall opening, reaching to his limits for the plug. Charlotte briefly blocks Sting with a metal sign, her limbs darting out on each side. She pulls it back, collapsing away, and enters the trash chamber. Ethan pushes even further and gets it plugged in, but gets knocked out by electricity. Man, this guy has bad luck with getting shocked. Charlotte pounds the button, and the compactor comes down, crushing Sting. She lets out a final weak gasp and perishes. Phew! They get Ethan out, and Heather does CPR through tears. Charlotte closes her eyes and counts to 3, and Ethan takes in a deep breath, back with us. Charlotte reaches out for him, calling him Dad, and says, "I love you." He returns the sentiments, and they share a big hug. Mom joins the group hug, and thanks to surviving this space spider ordeal, the family is closer together than ever before. They did take care of Sting, however this is only the beginning of the invasion, seeing a cluster of eggs and another spider hatches. Fortunately, Bonnie is still okay, barking and ensnared in the webs. Finally, at home, Helga hears the fresh hatchling chirping. Annoyed, she silences it for ruining her show, effectively starting the whole setup all over again. But now with a lot more spiders, I think they're screwed, basically. That wraps things up for now, but why not check out this video over here and keep the explaining going. Thanks so much for watching FoundFlix. See you next time.